Hello everyone. Today we're gonna do something a little bit special. This isn't a stream video, so it won't be named VOD like all the other videos here. We are gonna do a tier list for Tainted Grail. But not just any kind of tier list. This is more a tier list over like when you start the game, when you're new, when you don't have the max HP or full 25 armor or whatever you get at max. You fully upgraded that. We don't have all the like base stats upgrades. We don't have all the cards, but you have unlocked all the classes. And it's like first impression kind of tier list. I'm gonna make one later when I have all the stuff unlocked. Well, most of it. I don't think like you need all the the man at arms training stuff unlocked to fully understand the game. So, we're gonna take this one at a time. We're gonna place them here. S tier is for the classes that are like so ahead of the others in the early game. Remember, this is important. It's in the early game. That are so ahead of the others that they are not super reliant on finding the right cards, or you don't need a specific passives to work, and so on and so on. Like, you can just pick this class as soon as you unlock it, and you'll probably do very well. And A tier, this is like, they have a very few flaws, but they can still make very solid runs, like, and you can probably make extremely good runs. B tier, here's like the average ones. The ones that is a little bit tough. Like, they have flaws, like they need cards you have to unlock. Well, they don't need, but they will definitely smooth out the process. They need some stats to be used up to perform as good as the others. And C tier, these are like the classes that it's like they're suffering because they're missing like a bunch of cards they could use. They're missing base stats they need to work, and so on and so on. I will explain as we talk about the classes. And we're gonna start with Apostate. And Apostate is S tier. I know. Apostate, when you read a card, when I read the class, it seems so convoluted, it seems so 5-dimensional chess, like, how am I supposed to make the most out of this guy? How am I supposed to win just being able to flip cards around and stuff like that? It turns out, when you actually play him, it is not that hard. He is not that difficult. He has way more benefits than the other two archer classes. And this is because when he uses a maneuver card, he gets to keep the card in his hand. He can play it again, and he can play it until he runs out of energy. Just flipping it over and over and over and over. So, an issue with the archer class. It is their starting way of not getting hit through feint. And feint itself gives 10 armor for the turn and gives you armor equals to 100% of the armor you gained. But the problem is the flip side, unbreakable feints. Unbreakable feints gives you 150% of your armor into barrier. Did I say correct about that? I think that you gain barrier equals to the current armor you have that turn. Yeah, I think I did. And the Apostate, he can work around this so easily. Because if you have the bad side of a flip card, of a maneuverability, you can just play it again, and now you get the good side, and now you can absorb the damage you would take that turn. And his ability card idea reduces the cost of any maneuverability cost after that, but it costs 1 energy. So you want to do it on an ability cost 2 or more, but you can do it on a 1 cost energy to make it 0, and that's fine too, because you will still get a point towards your ultimate, which flips all the cards in your hand, and I'll get more about the ability later on. So yeah, because the way he works, like you just play your abilities, and he starts with the idea, like I mentioned, reduces by 1 cost, and he starts with another card that is really important for this. Let's see if I can remember its name. Alright, I do not. But basically, you draw 2 mana abilities from your deck and reduce their cost to 0. This is called deck consistency. And Apostate is the master of deck consistency. He can pull so many cards from his deck in a single turn. You can and you can control which side do you want. Because when you activate your ability, when you activate your ultimate, he flips all the cards starting from right to left. I think it works like that. It's either that or like the first card you draw, and like in that order, from the oldest to the newest. You just activate all of them. Boom, bam, like that. And there are many ability cards out there that deals damage. I don't remember the first name of it, but the third flip side is called Climax. And the first 2 sides gives 50% attack, then the other one gives 100% attack, as well as doing damage, and the damage scales. On the third one, you do like, I think it's 300%, I think the second shape does 200%. And the third shape does that much damage, and it gives you minus 500 attack. We already played the 2 other sides, which is like 150. So you still net plus 100 for 2 turns. And that's why the Apostate is so good. He has not the problems the other archer classes suffers from. Simply because he controls the maneuverability cards. Because he can make sure he has the barrier for that turn to tank the damage coming in. And oh my, he snowballs so hard. And since you draw so much from your deck due to his passive effect, like every 2 maneuverability cards you play, you get to draw a card. Yeah, he has the he gets so consistent with his deck, so which is a very powerful thing in card games. That yeah, he simply does not have the problems that many other classes suffers from. Like he doesn't get a bad hand draw as much as the other one. He doesn't need cards like Reposition, which is like a 0 mana energy card that throws away your hand. You draw 5 new cards. He doesn't need these panic button cards as much as the other classes do. And that's why he's in his tier. Really strong, especially when you get the Climax card. And he has the other one is an AoE ability, which I can't remember the name of the other, but it's also an maneuverability that discards all your other maneuverability cards and you do like damage equal to that. You want the flip side of that, the second side. He has one issue, or something you need to keep in mind when you play him. But it's not enough to bring him down to A tier. And that's the flip side of his ability card idea. I think it's called, the flip side is called Stunning Idea or something like that. And what that one does is it shreds armor on all the enemies. 5% for every maneuverability card in your hand that you discard. So when you activate your ultimate, which plays all cards and flip them, you want to have the idea side. So you can play all your other maneuverability cards and still keep them in your hand. So that you need to keep in mind. It's not the Stunning Idea as a bad side either, because the armor shred can be huge. I had like minus 50, I think. It's like 5% for every maneuverability card. I think I had minus 50 at best. Then you just drop all your 0 cost or 1 cost arrows in your hand. You just deal tons of damage. Or you can play like play one of your feint cards, you had a barrier, and then you play the Stunning Idea, shred the armor, then you tank that turn, and then you start over next one. But yeah, if you misplay that that part with the Stunning Idea and like loses all your cards, that's like the only risk. That's something you need to keep in mind when you press the ult button. That if you do this now, the idea card will always trigger first. You will not get the chance to like trigger the other cards and then it. Because I think it goes from left to right. But enough about the Apostate. He's in S tier. You can always rely on him. And yeah, this is basically a tier list for difficulty 1 to 4 to 5, I would say. This is like the early game. They like when you just unlock the class, you probably unlocked a couple of cars, maybe some skins, stuff like that. You probably have most of the villagers. You should have around 6 or 5 by now, preferably all 7, but I don't blame you if you haven't found all 7, that's fine. It's not the end of the world. Alright, so next one. Let's take one of each class. So next one is gonna be the Pathfinder. And the Pathfinder is a tier class. So the Pathfinder is the tank class. Like, he's built around not getting hit every turn. He gets 50% attack that stacks until he gets hit. So you just play. You want to like stun enemies. You want to bring up your block numbers to crazy amounts, and he can do that very easily. At least a couple of blocks. And you want to get like crazy amounts of attack. But his problem is, as I noticed, the higher you get in level, the more frequent multi-attack monsters become. It gets harder and harder to like get the block amount you need for that turn, or pull the stun card in your deck that you need that specific turn when that creature, like a faceless hunter, has been building up attacks over the 2 last turns. And due to that, and if any you get hit, and you can like, if you don't get the right cards to tank, you can lose like half your health in 1 turn because you like try to do the best of the situation. And yeah, and when you get like in a situation where like the first monster gonna attack is gonna do like 3 1-hits on you, and then the one guy after is gonna swing you for like 50 damage or something. I've been in those situations, and that's when the Pathfinder, like, that's his struggle moments. If you don't build up your armor at the same time you build up your blocks. So yeah, he can dish out a lot of damage. He can be very, like, never take damage ever, but when you take damage, it usually is a big chunk of your health that you lose. And that's why he's in A tier. He's still above the rest, in the early game at least. Like, the early game cards you have with him and that you unlock, those are all really good for him at the early game, when multi-attacks aren't as frequent as they become later on at the higher difficulties. Alright, and next one is gonna be the Summoner, and the Summoner is a B tier, middle of the road. Not superiorly strong, not suffering either. So the deal with the Summoner is, you have this, you pick one summon, and it's gonna scale endlessly, or your summons can scale endlessly. The problem is, at the end of every turn, you get sapped by these guys. You're supposed to like absorb that damage with, say, putting up a barrier. And that will take, and the higher level they are, the more they sap you, and so on and so on. You just want to keep like one really high, like a worm or an abomination, depending on how you want to deal with the run. As you can start with the golem, a-bomb, or the worm. And I don't think you should start with a golem. Like the other 2 classes, starting with a golem is my preferable choice. But not with this guy. I just want to start with a worm and hope I draw something that helps me deal with the damage incoming. So let's see. So the Summoner, like, he can also get really good turns. Well, he can get really good runs in the early game. I don't know about the late game. This is an early game Tierlist. And yeah, that's all I had. That's really all I had to say about the Summoner. The reason he's not getting higher is because his damage is like, you can't control. If you start with the worm, you can't control where the worm is gonna target. It will attack randomly. You can only like reliably attack with the abomination. And the abomination doesn't hit as hard as the worm. It doesn't have the armor shred. It's more of an AoE dealer. And yeah, AoE is fine. There are certainly certain treasure guardians and other enemies that where the like multiple attack is more valuable than a worm, but I feel like summoning a abomination and keeping it up for dealing with waves is much more manageable than like trying to summon a worm and trying to keep it strong enough to like deal with bosses and stuff, or keeping it alive. And yeah, and then you have the Fae, which I think only gives you ult charge. I don't remember what else he does. And yeah, so that's why Summoner is middle of the road. He doesn't have like his main problem is reliability if you pick the Worm. And if you pick the Abomination, you don't have the same single target DPS. Well, DPT, I guess, damage per turn. Alright, and now we're going back to the Archers. And the next one is gonna be Mr. Zealot. And the Zealot is a steady C tier. So the Zealot's whole deal is you wanna like stack up this damage he has until like start one hitting or kill monsters in 2 hits. That's his whole deal. And while stacking, you need to survive those rounds. And how do we survive? Play maneuverability cards. But unlike the Apostate, he can't just roll Unbreakable Feint, flip it and play the feint side and make sure he has a barrier for that turn to block the incoming strikes. And that's why I also feel a lot of the big damage arrow cards is something you unlock further on as you play. He does miss these 400%, and I think there's even this one arrow that deals 600%. I might be wrong on that one. But yeah, the 400 to 500% super cards. Like there's this one quiver that lets you draw, what is it? 4 200% cards that cost 0 energy. And yeah, because of that, it was really hard to like keeping him healthy. Because you don't have any base armor, you gotta get armor from your cards. And his ability doesn't help with that. And his passive doesn't help with that. And his passive is also another issue because he's unreliable. I shouldn't say it's not unreliable, it's inconsistent. That's the issue. You draw a random arrow. You can get the big damage one, the wind shot. You can get the water one, which reduces attack. And you get the fire one that shreds armor. They all deal damage, but the wind one deals like only damage and deals more damage from the other ones. And sometimes you just want to be like the big shot to kill a guy. Just drink some water. So that's why the Zealot is problematic in the early game. You don't have the cards to keep him active. You don't have the base stats to like not having to rely on drawing the right cards every turn to make sure you have barrier or stun the enemies, stuff like that. That's why he has to be in C tier. I'm sure once I start unlocking more stuff, like I'll get more on it when we reach to the Sentinel about the Archer class. Alright, so the next is the Berserker. And the Berserker is a melee class who is a solid A tier. And he's borderline S tier, he's almost there. So what's the problem with this? Let's talk about the Berserker. What makes him so good? What makes him so good is once he starts leveling, when he gets level 10 and you can upgrade your ultimate to do different powerful things, he can just heal himself back so much. Basically, you don't want block cards with the Berserker, you more like want to get armor. If you can get that 75% armor, not percent, just 75 armor, you're in a really good spot. You barely take any damage and you just stack up your passive or your ultimate. And then you activate your ultimate and then you do like one of your big like Skullcracker or some other big damage charge and you heal yourself back up to full from almost dying. You want to keep there like at 50%, slightly lower in case you have some kind of passive healing or end of turn healing stuff. So you have that extra +1 energy, and then there's like all the goodies that comes at 25% if you pick those talents, which I do personally. So yeah, he's really strong, and he like at the end game he just heals himself so much, especially when you pick the passive for his ultimate that makes him. I don't know if it's an ultimate upgrade or if it's one of his regular upgrades, but he has one that makes him gain 2 charges when he gets hit instead of 1. If you take that and you take the stance card that gives him half his meter, so it goes down to so it goes up to 6. That's higher or lower, regardless of how much you have at the time. If you have over 6, it does nothing, by the way, so don't even experiment with that. I did that for you. If you have those two things, which is very easy to obtain, like the card that gives you up to 6 meter, that's so common to pick almost every run I've seen it with the melee classes. So that's what makes him strong. I had some crazy build when I played him. I don't know what happened. Like, I think I had some ability that whenever I took a hit, I got free armor for that turn and the next turn upcoming. And I took that and I had retaliate, which when you get hit, you hit them back. And like, there was just this chain of effects that's happened. I was sitting at 75 armor every combat. Yeah, it got really wild. But the problem is his early game. Like the first zone you go into. Part of the second one as well. There is when the Berserker is fragile. Like, you're still trying to play through the stuff, but he doesn't have the passive ability yet. You can pull the strong cards that makes him as strong as he is, possibly. That makes him 8 higher. So that's his most dangerous part in the game, is when you don't have like stacked up a bunch of health. You don't have 200 health plus and all that. So he's gonna be an 8 higher because of that, because he has that early game issue or weakness. It's kind of like, and I mean, this early game, not as in lower difficulty. This, like the Pathfinder, his issue is from higher difficulty and not being to reliably get the CC needed or the blocks. This is more in the run itself. All right, so next one is gonna be another summoner, I think. Yes, and it's gonna be Necromancer, and the Necromancer is a B-tier character, just like Summoner. Why is he in B-tier, I think? Or it's probably what you ask me as you watch this video. Well, Necromancer. He's really fun to play, don't get me wrong. Like, I enjoyed the run. And but he does want sacrifice cards, and you unlock a bunch of sacrifice cards as you level up. You don't have that many from the get-go. You want to sacrifice on demand, like you want to sacrifice something now. You want it to get to a high level, and then you sacrifice it, so it becomes like this ghost that lasts a long time and does this effect that becomes stronger every turn, like the Abomination Ghost that gets 25% damage every turn it passes. Like, you want to keep the golems alive so they can block the attacks incoming, or you want to keep the Fae alive so it heals you. And then when you feel like you don't need healing anymore, you just sacrifice it so it becomes a ghost that uses your ult meter every turn instead. And the Lich form, which is super strong. Like, it's probably the best cards in the game is when you turn into the Lich and get the unique Lich cards. But you can only get all of them if you have 4 alive minions at the time, which is not easy to pull off. I usually have like 1 or 2 alive when I turned into a Lich. But even with just those cards, it's still a really powerful shape. But the problem is right there, when you turn into the Lich, you need to be able to survive that turn, because you won't have any golem tanking for you. You need to make sure you are ready, and that was my downfall. I didn't even consider that if I die in a Lich form, I am dead. The run is over. I thought, like, some part of my brain was telling me, oh, you turn back into your human form if you die as a Lich. Maybe at 1 health or something, but that was not the deal. You just flat out die. And I didn't do the math properly, because I was like, I have 110 barrier. I will survive this round, no problem. But this was against the first boss, the Golem, and he was really buffed up, and he smacked me a little bit harder than I thought. Yeah, so I died in that run on the first boss. Other than that, in many ways, I feel like he's the opposite of the Summoner, who wants to keep a pet alive as long as possible. Meanwhile, the Necromancer just wanna like kill his stuff as soon as possible, so there are in these ghosts, except for like the things he needs to be alive. To maybe redirect hits. Oh yeah, and when you kill stuff, you get this free summon. I think they're called Ghoul. They will hit all enemies and itself, and it doesn't get targeted by enemies. And when it dies, it doesn't count towards your ultimate meter that gets a +1 every time a minion dies. The ghosts don't count as minions. That's why you want to say the Ghost Fae form, because it will give you +1 meter every time. But yeah, because of those things, I feel like, yeah, it's kind of like the Zealot, reliability issues. You not always have all the cards available as the Lich form, because you need to sacrifice minions when you turn into Lich form. You sacrifice the alive minions you still have. And you might need a card of the bonus cards that you didn't get, and you maybe needed that to survive that turn or kill or win or whatever. So that's why he gets to be a tire in the early game. Oh my god, my throat. Sorry. I did this video by mistake before, but I didn't record it, so I'm like doing it again. Alright. Next one. It's gonna be our final melee class. And the first one you play as, the Wyrdhunter. And the Wyrdhunter is a B-tire. Why is the Wyrdhunter a B-tire? Because unlike his fellow melee brothers, he is Mr. Like, this is the B-tire, this is average. And he has problem with not getting hit. That's mostly it. He doesn't have the same block power and engine, like the engine part of the Pathfinder, who can get more energy and draw more cards, reduce energy cost of those cards with his ultimate, the Pathfinder. The Wyrdhunter just like he likes hitting a lot. Like, you want this multi-hit cards that hits random, duck 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 duck. See your ultimate build up, get that specific every 4th hit bonus damage of 100% for that turn. Mark applied when you ult and big, and hope that does a ton of damage and maybe even kill the target, hopefully. And the problem with the Wyrdhunter is because I played him I played one run of the Wyrdhunter later on, not the first one, just to try him with a little bit more stuff unlocked, and it was still the same. Like, I could not avoid things, I could not kill things fast enough. I feel like I didn't have the multi-hit cards good enough, like the one that hits 6 times and shreds a little bit of armor, stuff like that. And like having to time his ability, like you wanna like pretty much trigger his passive, which is like when something gets hit for the 4th time during the combat. For that turn, they take 100% more damage. Like, you want to do that when you want to pop the ult, of course, the obvious stuff, or your big damage cards. But yeah, he's not as easy to like. He's probably the class that will drink the most potions, it feels like, or elixirs. And if you run out of elixirs and rest, it's gonna be tough, because he has like, unlike the Berserker, he doesn't have the same like, he doesn't have the super lifesteal that the Berserker has. The Berserker can just put on his ability, turn on his ultimate, throw down Skullcracker, get healed up all the way back. Wyrdslayer does not have that. He has a big nuke, and that's pretty much it. And I feel like you can't optimize that with your early game stuff without the base extra health. And I think the damage upgrade is probably the biggest thing for him, because the multi-hit cards, they hit kinda low, and there's a bunch of these perverted life force that does not take damage from cards under a certain level, under a certain amount of damage, a flat amount. And I felt when I met those perverted life forces, it was really like that was tough, and I was used to like just steamroll any enemies. But yeah, since he's probably like, Wyrdhunter is the one that hits the lowest of these 3 classes, of the 3 melee classes, because he like more about multi-hit stuff. And Fanny hits even harder than these two, potentially, with his ult and with the debuff he applies. And that's why he's middle of the road. He doesn't have quite not Not the sustainability of the Berserker, not the, like, not taking damage to begin with that the Pathfinder has. Alright, next on the spot. I'm gonna do mind game on you guys, and I'm gonna take the Sentinel at the end of the last one. What is the Sentinel? Well, he's a fellow sea tire along with Zealot. And he suffers basically from the same things as the Zealot did. He doesn't have... When you don't have the passive armor from the seamstress upgrades with blood, your feint ability, which is your like early game main source of not getting hit with a barrier, is just not as reliable. Like you like gotta spend another other cards, like get some armor that turn, or like for the next 2 turns, and then you can play the barrier, and then you can do some damage. And a lot of, and for the Sentinel specifically, who's like, he's like the Wyrdhunter of the archer classes. Like he too wanna hit a lot rather than hitting big, possibly because he has this passive effect where he has a ghost that shoots an arrow every time he shoots an arrow. Of course, I think that damage scales with the damage of the cards. Of course, big damage arrows is also good on him. But anyways, you want like the multi-shot cards, and you want all these 0 and 1 cost cards that you unlock the arrows, and like the special quivers that gives you. I don't remember the name of the quiver, but like gives you 4 200% damage, 0 cost single targets arrow cards. I like that one. I think it's similar to Heavy Shot, but it's free instead of costing 1 energy. I think Heavy Shot does. So like you want to like get all these arrow cards and all these multi-shot stuff, but you don't get that until you are leveled a bit on unlocked stuff. So yeah. So that's why, unlike the Apostate, who isn't as reliable on this kind of stuff, because he can just play consistently with the cards he's dealt and simply keep winning like that. While these two, they gotta rely on getting the right side of the feint card, etc. But that's why I want to play the Sentinel, not the next run, but the run after that. I want to play the Sentinel again. Because now I have 5 base armor, which is not a lot. It's the next least amount from that isn't 0. Well, this is the least amount that isn't 0. So early game, I think Sentinel also struggles. But I think in the late game, he's definitely better. And that's why I feel about the Wyrdhunter. I think Wyrdhunter, he needs these base stats buffs to like endure a bit more. Like, unlike his brothers here. Because they can just gain life, and gaining life is such a strong ability to have. Not strong enough. I might put the Necromancer in A tier. Like, this might be an unfair position for him. Because he does have the Fae, but I still think you still gotta juggle everything. You gotta juggle the ghost and the living, and you gotta have the good sacrifice cards and so on and so on. So yeah, maybe it's B tier in the early game still. But I feel like Necromancer can come up here, but he's just a little bit more advanced to play, which also plays in the tier listing. Like the simpler they are to play, the higher up they also go, because it's about consistency. So the final class, the Blood Mage. Where do you think he belongs? Does he belong in C tier with the other classes that struggles in the early game? Does he belong in B tier? The average Yost that has a bit of issues, they can still pull through. Does he belong in A tier, who are like consistently well performing? Or is he in S tier that does not struggle at all? And the answer is Blood Mage is S tier along with Apostate. Why is he S tier? I don't know why I keep starting my dialogue with that. But anyway, the Blood Mage is S tier because he's so consistently strong. He summons his stuff at level 1, unless you have like... No, I think the upgraded version of summons just make them cheaper. I don't think it might start from a higher level. Anyways, when they are at level 4 and they get upgraded again, because they upgrade at the end of every turn or when you cast the promote spells, they pop like overcharge and they do like special ability. When the golems die, or when the golems overcharge rather, if they die normally, they don't overcharge. But if they overcharge, you get healed for a ton, and... Yeah, and the worms and the abomination do a lot of damage, and even though your summons cost a little bit of health, which I thought was... Which I first started Blood Mage, I was very concerned about that. Like, oh, I lose 5% of my max health if I summon this thing. That doesn't sound good. I'm supposed to keep this up, and then you just have these golems that just explode and heal you up. You just can keep very sustained like that. So the Blood Mage is in the S tier because he is consistent. He has very easy way of controlling the battle. You don't care about your minions as much as the Summoner Necromancer. Like, sure, if they're alive, that's fine. They're gonna explode eventually because you can't downgrade them. Like the Necromancer, his stuff starts out strong and becomes weaker and weaker until they die, or you sacrifice them into a ghost. Yeah. And the Blood Mage can also get some ridiculous damage. Like, you can just throw out your minions, don't care much for them, and just do what you need. Like, you can promote them to speed up them to explode and stuff. And then you have, of course, his ultimate, which makes like super overcharges. Actually, I need to remember what exactly is. Let me just look Blood Mage ultimate real quick. Like, what other effects are there? Yeah, it multiplies the effects of the ability. Like, at full charge is 400% easy. And of course, his ability also helps because page 5 HP, which isn't a problem anymore, and you draw a random summon. This is a very good panic card when your deck isn't as reliable as you would like. You like pull a summon, any summon is fine. You probably maybe want to pull the golem because you don't have a golem up, so you're just gonna get hit and you want to avoid getting hit. But even any other summon has some chance of getting hit instead of you. So it's a good, or if you're like ahead, you can just pull this to keep having 4 minions out. So yeah, Blood Preparation is really nice passive, and it's like not only draws like specific summon guys, it's also like other cards that are called summon, like the one that summons 3 dudes, well 4 dudes, called Wild Summon, I think. So yeah, he too wins on that for being very good. He has high damage, he can control the battle well, he has this emergency ability. Like, pull out a summon, get out there, do your stuff for me. And this is the end of the tier list for early game Tainted Grail, my friends. Opinions, share them in the comments. Do you think the other 2 archer classes should be higher? Am I just a scrub? Are they actually amazing in the early game? Do they not really need all the maneuver stuff? And you tell me in the comments. But until then, I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.